When I first started this channel, it was about headcanon. I quickly grew attached to analysis though, and headcanon fell to the wayside. Despite this, I still like headcanons, I just don't want to talk about them that much. This isn't the case with reviews. At the start of Season 4 I thought, why not do reviews? It might be fun. I was wrong. Horribly wrong. I've done 4 reviews now where all I'm doing is riding my ass about my personal likes or dislikes. And I'm done focusing on myself. I'm, for the most part, done with reviews. I've returned to my roots and I'm not going back. Hope you're satisfied like I am. So let's get into this analysis already. This episode's strongest element is arguably its moral. It presents 2 sides, the pragmatic and the ethical. And instead of showing the value in both, it paints the ethical as better. To many, in particular those who live on a farm, they may be against this portrayal, preferring the episode show both as equally important or taking the pragmatic side. I get that, but I think it's more important to reinforce the ethical more. When we're going through life, it's easier to choose the pragmatic over the ethical. After all, we don't have to make as many sacrifices and feel less guilt because we're being pragmatic. This is why it's easy for people to avoid helping others. These are living, breathing humans, but I worked hard for my things and they're just lazy. So instead, let's kick them out. Now imagine a world where everyone thought that way. Many would be forced to live a life of cruel indifference as no one could sympathize with them. And since these pragmatic decisions are easier to make, the world would quickly turn into this if ethical decisions aren't highlighted. That is why I think media should do this. More of it should say the ethical is better, and thankfully that's this episode's stance. In the end, AJ chooses to make a sanctuary for the bats, despite her likely not getting anything from it. Without predators, the vampire fruit bat population will continue to grow, perhaps negating any of the positives. The positives, the spreading of seeds and making the trees grow stronger and faster, might not be able to keep up with the bat's population growth. Eventually, part of the bat population might even have to leave because their numbers are too great. The fact that the positives can easily be outweighed by the negatives makes this lesson all the more ethical. It's the equivalent of letting a complete jackass in your house because they're poor and have no place else to go. I don't know about you, but when I see that, I regain faith in humanity, since profound kindness still exists in the world. These things are what propel the human race forward. If you still disagree with me, let me give another example. Isn't the better system the one that looks after its flaws and tries to improve them, instead of the system that ignores them and gradually gets worse and worse till it breaks down? When humans show kindness, they're demonstrating the first example. This moral is further strengthened by another factor, explained to us in the flashback. The vampire bats previously wrecked sweet apple acres and caused them to ration apples. Since in the flashback the entire farm looks devastated, they had few apples and the bats were gone, I imagine the apple family managed to save a small part of the orchard, by harvesting those apples before the bats could get to them. With the orchard out of food, the vampire bats soon left to find more food. So, Applejack agreeing to create a sanctuary for these creatures is also the equivalent of forgive those who trespass against us. This demonstration of kindness is probably the greatest we have ever seen in the entire show. The only thing that comes close to this is Rarity's display ensued for success. Some may argue that this is generosity, and it is. I just view generosity as a type of kindness, despite what the show suggests. Furthermore, this is perhaps one of the kindest things that AJ and Fluttershy have ever done. AJ for agreeing to make this extremely kind action, and Fluttershy for preaching this kindness to others. In my mind, spreading kindness is equally significant. I mentioned earlier that the better system is the one that works on its flaws and tries to improve them. That means to help others, but also to help others understand they need to help others. That's what Fluttershy tries to do here. She first talks about their humanity, or ponanity, that they care for their young and that they're loyal to their family. Then after that fails, she talks about their usefulness, bringing up potential positives. These positives don't mean much though, because as I mentioned, AJ can easily lose more by taking them in. To sum it up, Fluttershy first tried pathos and then logos. It was only after her friends overwhelmed her confidence that she agreed to use the stare, and even then she still disagreed with them. Nonetheless, the level to which she tries to get AJ to sympathize, in my mind, is just. Fluttershy and AJ don't just seem kind through their interaction, but new elements of their characters are also shown. Prior to this point, we only had 2 points of reference for this character interaction, Winter Wrap-Up and Keep Calm and Flutter On. From those episodes, it's clear AJ's more concerned about the well-being of her trees than other animals, wanting to melt the snow and have the beaver take apart his dam, regardless of what it does to the animals. Until now, AJ's attachment to her plants wasn't portrayed negatively. In Winter Wrap-Up, it shows her having an equally good argument to Fluttershy's, and in Keep Calm and Flutter On, it portrays the beaver in the wrong and he has to leave. By portraying her side negatively in Bats, it shows how villainizing Applejack can be. She's literally fear-mongering during the song, calling the bats big, mean, and ugly as sin, and monsters that need to be attacked. By comparing her to Fluttershy in the song, this behavior seems even more extreme. If the context was different, if AJ was with a group that shared this opinion, it seemed less radical because you could argue she was pressured by groupthink. But when she's arguing against her sensitive friend, there's more reason to be respectful, which makes her reactions here all the more extreme. All in all, interacting with Fluttershy draws out this new behavior, and I'd be surprised if people still say AJ's a perfect pony afterwards. This character interaction also does a lot for Fluttershy's development. She's usually criticized as being a character that doesn't develop. One area that is referenced is putting your hoof down. In that episode, she learned to be more assertive, yet critics intelligently point out that the lesson doesn't seem to stick. The next episode, she goes back to being shy, and before bats, we didn't know why. But now we know. She's shy because she's around her friends. In putting your hoof down, she learned to be assertive to people that weren't her friends. Heck, that episode may have even made her regret standing up to her friends at all, because it made her feel so bad. Every time we saw her being shy afterwards, it was in the presence of a friend. Sure, she had her moments of odd assertiveness, like in Dragon Quest, but it was more a result of gut reaction. Her gut reaction in Dragon Quest was, no, it's dragons, I can't, I won't. It wasn't caused by any actual lesson that she had retained. In Bats, though, she learns to be assertive to even her friends, because her friends for the first time get in the way of her passion, animals. They don't take her advice on animals, which is unusual. Applejack's argument is convincing them not to. Only Fluttershy isn't convinced because she is an animal lover who champions environmental ethics. She's faced with the conflict of friends versus passion, and it's through her regret of choosing friends that she learns to stand up for what she thinks is right. Since this lesson might stick, it has tremendous potential in developing her out of the shy static state she's been in. Furthermore, this lesson would have never happened in the episode if it wasn't for AJ's fear-mongering that made the main six side against Fluttershy. So there you go. Fluttershy shows AJ is far from perfect, and AJ inadvertently causes Fluttershy to learn a great lesson that can develop her character. Both of these changes help dismiss the character's biggest complaints. AJ that she's perfect, and Fluttershy that she's a static character. All these things make the episode great, but sadly, the episode is nowhere near perfect. There's some big problems here. Everything I said about AJ and Fluttershy and the kindness of the moral are scraps. They're the things this episode dedicates the least amount of time to. AJ and Fluttershy's character interaction is mainly presented in the song, and a few minutes before the song, and then it's dropped. I counted how long their character interaction was on the screen, and it's about 5 minutes, so about 25% of the runtime. I can't be the only one thinking they can do better than 25%. We instead get sidetracked by the rest of the main six, who don't offer anything of real value. The episode presents reasons for why they'd help, but we don't need all of them there. Having them there just means you need to provide a reason for why they're there, which wastes runtime. In a sense, they just put them in the story to put them in the story. It's not terrible to do stuff like this, but make it short. A good example would be the alcohol reference in All's Well That Ends Well. It's fluff that should be used sparingly. The only other main six member who served any real purpose was Twilight, who could have actually acted as a neutral party at first. Gradually, with more explanation given, agreed to AJ's plan and used magic on the bats. Afterwards, she could see the ethical problems of doing so. This would have made the episode be the first to have 3 characters, the best by the way, learn something new. But the way it was done, the ethical side of using the spell is never addressed. And the ethical problems of magic have never been addressed either. Mix that with the fact that Celestia and Luna might not know everything that goes on, and Equestria seems less and less like a utopia. The bat angle also should have been addressed. They could have shown more how AJ starts seeing the bats as something more than just monsters. All we got was her saying, I just want my friend back. Writing staff, come on. You can do better than one line, can't you? What we got in place of the ethics of magic in the new viewing of bats was again, useless fluff from the main six, and a transformation that was really drawn out. Unlike what happened earlier in the episode, I'd argue the main six fluff was worse here. They established light signals, yet only AJ is smart enough to use hers. As for Flutterbat, it could have been, a surprise that would have made the audience be able to share in Applejack's shock. By the time she realized it, I was like, that's so 3 minutes ago. Literally, it's about 3 minutes. Also, if you're going to include Flutterbat, make it meaningful. Explore more of the narrative weight it has. By instead wasting all that time, this episode doesn't have the time it needs to clarify on important matters. Like, how do they keep the bats in the sanctuary? Was it because Fluttershy learned the bat language and they agreed? What happened? Sure, I can speculate, and it's fun too, but these are things that need explanation. This is the resolution. You need to explain the resolution. It's kind of important. A 3-act structure needs all legs as strong as possible. This is distressing. This episode gives me what I want, and I love it for that, but I can't help feeling gypped that the deep things were the scraps. It dilutes itself with shallow stuff, the last one being the ending scene showing she still has fangs. I'm sorry, I just don't see that being brought up again. This season they've been including a lot of things simply for the sake of including those things, and I don't see this as anything different. I want to be wrong about this, I really do. Celestia, I hope I'm wrong.